Hey everyone, Anna Hammonds here with Unite Ellis podcast, and today we're talking about our military community, how we're thriving and flourishing within that community. We're also talking about Veterans Treatment Court with Brent Dorrough. We're talking all the things, so let's get started. Okay, Brent, thanks for being here.
Sure.
Let's get started by you telling me your whole background. Obviously, you don't have to go back to birth, but how'd you get here? How'd you end up here in Ellis County? And let's kind of go from there.
Okay, so I retired from the Marine Corps after 30 years of service.
Okay.
I ended up in this area by taking a fellowship to a logistics company that's one of their 7 sites across the U.S. is in DeSoto.
Okay.
So I went there for 3 months for a fellowship and ended up taking the position they created for me. And I did that for about a year. And then at the end of that time, I just decided that it wasn't for me.
Okay.
I wasn't contributing to the community or anything. The work was good, the pay was good, but it wasn't satisfying. So I decided to be fully retired for about 7 months. And that drove me crazy and probably drove my wife even more crazy. So I started looking for something to do, and somebody, I don't remember who, but somebody asked if I had ever been interested in state or county work, and I hadn't even looked at that because my background is communications, so I was really just looking at things in that lane.
Okay.
And there was a lot out there, a lot of really cool, neat jobs, a lot of money associated with it, but I didn't feel like I needed to chase the money.
Right.
I felt like I needed to chase the passion.
Yeah.
And I was missing that. I didn't think I would miss that after 30 years of service. But I quickly discovered that I did miss it. So I did start looking at the county stuff and state things, and I was actually in line to be the director of HR for the county.
Oh, very different.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody really likes HR.
Sorry, all the HR people out
sorry
there.
guys, but I mean, you deal with problems all day, right? So I was
sure.
like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And at the last minute, this Veterans Treatment Court job posted, or it might have been posted before, I don't know, but I saw it at the last minute, and I asked if I could, meet with the judge and interview for it, and I went in, and it was, I mean, we just clicked right away.
That's awesome.
So that's where I ended up here.
That's awesome. Okay, so for those that don't know, so you work for Ellis County, the government entity.
Yes.
And so describe a little bit about how that all works with the court and what your day-to-day looks like.
So I work directly for Judge Wallace in the 378th District Court. He has his own family court docket, and he just volunteers to do the Veterans Treatment Court. He too is a veteran. He was in the Marine Corps and the Army.
That's awesome.
So he's a natural fit, perfect guy for the job. But I go in, every day, normal court hours, and I just do Veterans Treatment Court processing all day, whether it's, administrative for processing paperwork or searching, because we have to find the veterans that go into our program, whether it's through, being out in the community, doing podcasts, whatever, standing up our website online, just trying to reach the community in every way that we can, because a lot of people just don't know that we have this program. It's still relatively new, even though we've had 17 veterans enter our program, and now we've graduated 5 of those 17. So we're just using, all of the different meetings we can go to, the resource fairs, whatever we can find to be present at, to get the word out, really, because the budget for the Veterans Treatment Court is simply a salary budget. We don't have advertising. We don't have any money set aside to do anything extra. So we're kind of we're building this bridge as we cross it.
Okay, so help everyone understand kind of the program. So if a veteran is entering the court system for whatever reason, that's when you kick into gear. So kind of take us through an example of that.
So probably the best example I can give you is the DWI.
Okay.
Let's say that a veteran is coming into the program with that charge. It used to be that they had to come in with some sort of charge that's service connected. Say, for instance, they come back, it used to be just a combat related program, now it's not. It's service connected now. So they come in and they have a DWI. They use alcohol, they use drugs, whatever the case may be, as a coping mechanism. Obviously, that's not what they should be doing. But they've never been taught, or they just don't know, how to cope in a healthy way. So they use those things. They get the charge. Sometimes I get, a phone call or an email from a defense attorney. Sometimes it's from the veteran themselves if they know about us. And then we start looking at the paperwork. What we do is we get the paperwork going and all that stuff, and we start immediately with trying to get their records from the VA if they've had mental health issues in the past. We can get those with their consent. And if they haven't, then we align them with our Director of Behavioral Health for an assessment.
Okay.
So while all of that is happening, we're still doing a lot of the paperwork behind the scenes, but we have to get them into the pipeline to really initiate that process. Once they're in the court itself, they have to be approved by the DA. It's the DA's program. But once they're in, everything really starts really fast.
Okay.
But in that program, just to give wave tops, and we can go back into this if you want for the specifics, but at the very start of it, they're looking at a year in our program.
Okay.
So it's a year of treatment.
Wow.
It's a specialty court, and all specialty courts are built on the drug court model, but we focus on the treatment. So in that first 90 days, we really expect them to struggle. We get them aligned to all the services that we know they need up front based on the assessment. And then, we coach them through the first year of the program so that they know what's coming. Yeah. And I say the first year because the program, they could actually finish the program in around 10 and a half months if they hit all of the milestones throughout, which means they're going to all their treatment appointments. They're very, interactive with the group or the individual counselor, whoever they're seeing. But they have to do all those things, and they have to be on time. I mean, there's so many requirements in the program. It's really a lot more than if you just go through the standard, go to court, end up on probation, all that type of stuff. There's so much more that they have to do because it's a treatment court.
Right.
So we expect them to want it for themselves at least as badly as we want it for them.
Yeah.
So, but they go through all of that for a year, and at the end of that year, the charge is expunged. It's completely off their record. The county doesn't keep records of it. The state does because the state finances it. They keep the records for 3 years.
Okay.
But then even those records are gone after that. So if they had, a career field that didn't allow for this charge, once it's expunged, they're back into their career field. So it's a huge deal.
Yeah, so having a docket specific for veterans, not only you have a judge that's working with you through all this, it's getting it all together in one, court, one judge, everything like that. But then it's also allowing certain programs based off of their history and background that's specific to veterans, and then allows them to go into this program. Is that a fair assessment?
It is, yeah. We have a core team for the court. It's made up of the judge, myself, the Director of Behavioral Health, CSCD, which is probation, supervision, the DA's office. The VA is sometimes has multiple reps in there, but we have one veteran justice officer who is directly associated with our team. So we have everybody on that core team that needs to be on there. And we have 2 defense attorneys that volunteer to be there. They're both veterans. And then we have all of our mentors that are in the program that are all veterans. They have to be a mentor in our program that all volunteer their time to do this. And then if you're there at the court, you'll see in the jury box, it's full of resource providers here in Ellis County.
Right. So the social services, they're actually attending court.
Absolutely.
And then that way they can know where to plug in.
On the spot.
I mean, it is the coolest representation of collaboration to me, all surrounding this one individual. Yeah. It's really neat. Okay, so you've been doing this how long? It's not been very long.
I started in January of 24.
Okay, so we've hit a year, and then you said how many have finished the program?
We've had 5 graduate.
Okay, any success stories out of that have stood out?
All of them. I mean, our very first graduate, he's a firefighter in Mansfield. Also a Marine. He was just everything that we gave him to do, he did it immediately. He didn't, there was no pushback, even from phase 1, which is when we really expect a lot of the struggle. because you're kind of like, butting heads quite a bit. They want to be in the program because of the expunction.
Sure.
And I warn them up front, like it's the motivation to come into the program is the easy part because it's an expunction.
Right.
And it's way cheaper, honestly, than going through the regular court system because you can kind of drop the attorney at the start of the program. You don't have to, but you don't need a lot of attorney interaction after that. So that's an option for them. But the discipline to stay in the program, to stay on track, because when it comes to the behavioral health side of it, Caitlin and Beth both, they're constantly given stuff to do. I need you to do this. You got to go into, IOP, SOP, this external program that we have through Challenge America. It sounds really fun. They get, a guitar sent to them, and it's personalized. They get a leather strap. They get a guitar stand. They work with a songwriter. They record their actual song that they write while they're in therapy.
Oh, that's so cool.
Which sounds awesome, right? But it's still therapy. You still have to do the work.
Yeah.
And the song at the end of it is your story.
And they're providing different skills or something else to focus on instead of how they were coping.
Absolutely.
Wow, I didn't know about that part.
And we're looking at equine therapy. There's so many different things, art really therapy.
Neat.
It's just the amount of resources that are out there and available to veterans for either low cost or free is so impressive, especially in this area.
Yeah.
In Ellis County, like you can't throw a rock and not hit a dozen veterans. It's very supportive throughout the community.
Yes.
It's just a fantastic environment.
That's so cool. Okay, so you talked about, not having a huge budget and how promotion would be one. Like, what do you want people to know? Obviously, it's one thing once they hit the court system. You don't want people to be like, hey, if you're in this situation. But like, what are you wanting to get out? Obviously, we have the social services. Anyone that's providing a service or mental health or anything like that, they can come be a partner in that, right? But
Absolutely.
What else are you wanting to get out to people?
Really just to let them know that we're here,
Okay.
that this is available to our veteran community. And for those that aren't veterans but are associated to the veteran community to come and see it.
Yeah.
Come and see Veterans Court. It's so different than because most people don't know about court.
Right.
They know what they see on television and they think that's it.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, you don't want to know a lot, right? So, but come and see it and see how interactive it is. Because from start to finish, and it's usually done in an hour, it is constant back and forth, whether it's between me and the resource providers or the team or the judge. It's just constant talking the whole time.
Cool.
And when it gets to the judge where he's interacting with the veterans individually, you never know what you're going to hear. It could be very intrusive questions. It usually isn't, but it can be if they're struggling, if they're in trouble for something. We always want to go to treatment first, sanctions second.
Okay.
But at the same time, we still have to have teeth in the program.
Right.
So, we hold them accountable constantly. It's really tough on them. But the interaction is so different than normal court.
And so you also have people coming in and volunteering to be mentors. And so what makes an ideal mentor? What's kind of asked of them? What would you want people to know for that?
They have to have served. They have to have an honorable discharge. They have to go through a little bit of training that's through the All Rise program, which you don't have to be associated with All Rise, but they are really the national governance of the specialty courts.
Okay.
And so that's the conferences that we go to. They take care of the training. There's so many things that they cover down on. They have to do the training for my mentorship program. They do have to do that training through them, but it's free. It's free training, and it just kind of orients them into what the expectations are, what to do, what not to do, things you can talk about, confidentiality. I don't ask the mentors questions about what they're talking about, so they have that confidentiality so that they can build trust. Because I want the veterans that are in the program to trust their mentors and vice versa. So they create their own relationship. It's not micromanaged at all.
So they're meeting with them throughout the whole program, the 1 year.
They are.
And then how often do they meet with them?
That's totally up to them.
Okay.
I do expect them to contact each other at least once a week.
Okay.
But a lot of them, go to lunch, go to coffee. They do all these things on the side that, aren't really expectations, but they kind of are expectations.
Right. It's building the relationship.
It is, and it's building their own relationship, not something I'm saying you have to do this and you have to do this. There's none of that.
That's so good.
It really is.
So what are you seeing as some of the themes of what veterans are dealing with? Like, do you have kind of repeat themes that you see over and over again?
It's so different because everybody's life is so different, and sometimes it's work issues they're dealing with. Sometimes it's finances. Okay. That's a big one. So one of the things that I do want the community to know is that they can, if they want to contribute to help these veterans financially, they can do so. All they have to do is get a form, and they can make a donation to the county. It goes directly into a specific pot that the county has established for that, and then we can draw from that to pay for their, whether it's treatment, counseling, some of the costs associated with being on probation, which you wouldn't think it, but it's really high. Oh, yeah. Like, you have to pay $60 a month just to be on probation.
Oh, goodness.
Like, who wants to do that?
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, so what about any challenges that you see that stand out for the veterans?
It's so different. It really just depends on their attitude coming in, because I think everybody in phase one is excited to be in the program until they start getting all the requirements, and then, for lack of a better term, they probably get a little pissed off at that point, and they're like, what have I signed up for? I didn't realize, even though everything, we were very upfront with our information, and they sign, so many documents coming in. It's really like being back in the military.
Yeah.
But you sign so much paperwork that lists out what the requirements are, what the expectations are, and I warn them, constantly throughout this process, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
But, they're thinking about the end. They're thinking about the expunction. They're not thinking about all the stuff up front. And our program is broken down into 4 phases, and each one has its own challenges. So I think that they struggle a little bit initially when they really start to see what the expectations look like for them.
And there's real change.
Oh, absolutely.
That obviously requires
and
work.
It's the court, so we're going to hold you accountable. Like, your interactions are with the judge.
Yeah.
So they understand the severity of what's happening in those conversations. You have to be on time. You have to be, respectful or courteous to the judge. Yeah. You have to be all these things, which really aligns with their military service.
Yeah.
So a lot of the program is built in a way that is purposeful to remind them of their time in the military. Yeah. For that reason, we want that camaraderie. We want it to be hard. We want it to, to challenge them constantly, because if you're not challenged, you're not growing. Yeah. And we want them to grow. We want them to get back to where they were before any of this happened.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, let's talk about MCT. So within the Unite Ellis umbrella, we have multiple networks. One network that started, I don't know, a year, May we're at a year now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Is the Veterans Focus, which we call Military Community Team, the MCT. Yeah. I feel like there are capes every time I say MCT. Like, it's, it is. It's a bunch of veterans doing awesome things, and service providers around veterans. So tell me about that. You're one of our champions over that team. So tell me about that, some of the goals y'all have had, and then I want to weave into the battlefield event y'all just had.
Okay. Yeah, so the team was born about a year ago, and like you, for me, MCT makes me think back to my early years of service when I had to go through Marine combat training, but it's not that. So we're really just trying to unify the military community in the community, because it's so disconnected. It's really weird how disconnected services are, veterans can be, because when you transition out from active duty, you have a lot of people saying, hey, make sure you go, talk to the VFW, make sure you go talk to the Marine Corps League, the bigger entities.
Yeah.
And you can do that, and there's a lot of community involvement through that, but the networks inside of those groups are what's really important.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're getting help when you need help, whether it's, physical help, financial help, mental help, whatever the case may be. But it's through that brotherhood, that sisterhood that you create on active duty. And a lot of those guys that are, part of these programs, some of them are 80 years old. My service is way different than their service.
Sure.
I was in everything that happened in the 30 years that I served, but their experience was Vietnam, or their experience was World War II. So, in my mind, those guys are my heroes. Like, you get to go and learn from them. Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
That's really neat.
But they're not, a lot of those folks aren't in the workforce. And the services that a lot of current day veterans are dealing with, they need to know who's in the workforce part of the community so that they can reach out for those things, or they can offer those things. That's one of the things that the military community team was stood up to do, was connect those groups, and all veterans, not necessarily based on age, but to connect what we can do not only for each other, but for the whole community.
Yeah.
Because when I talk to veteran groups, one of the first things I say is, think about the amount of experience in this room. Not just life experience, but military experience. And a lot of the things that we do in the military, in my opinion, I guess I'm biased, but it's done way more organized than it is out in the community, where it's kind of a free-for-all.
Right.
And I don't say that to ever be derogatory, but it's just different.
Yeah.
It is different, and sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not better.
Yeah. We joke on the Unite team that with only being a year in for this MCTE team, it is probably our most structured, goal-oriented, which that's how I run too. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I remember when we had a county convene, I think in April or May, maybe, I guess it was May. And before that, someone was like, hey, do we have anything around veterans? We're like, I have my own personal list of those that I knew were veterans-specific organizations was pretty short. And we're like, hey, we're here as Unite to help rally and to support. Obviously, we're not direct service provider in this area, but however we can support. So we'll do an all call. And it was like they started coming out of the woodworks.
Yeah.
Not only any organization that supports everyone, including a veteran, but even organizations that were veteran-specific organizations. Yeah. And now it's like to watch y'all come together and be structured and have goals. It's so cool to me. It's how I function. I love how all the structure and everything. So one of y'all's goals was Battlefield, which we just got off of that event. So talk about the documentary and then some of the things that you saw come out of that event.
Yeah, so the Battlefield Home initiative came from last year, seeing it in Dallas.
Okay.
So, and knowing, because I never dealt with mental health things before taking this job. So seeing that and seeing how it spoke to the community, and it kind of peels the layer back a little bit to say, there's no way you can come home from combat and not have issues.
Sure.
There's just not.
Yeah.
You see things and you experience things that are just abnormal.
Yeah.
So we all have those stories, but it's not just combat. Sometimes it's service. If you're, deploying overseas for a year or 3 years, can be extremely hard on people. And then if you layer that with the things that can happen in training or victims of military sexual trauma, those types of things are just, they're really debilitating. So we start looking at all of those combined, and Battlefield Home took a look at the PTSD side of it, which is a big problem. It's a really big problem. A lot of people really struggle with post-traumatic stress, and there has to be a better way of combating that. So I saw the Battlefield Home stuff, and I thought, okay, maybe this is a way that we get into that and start talking about it and having those conversations so that we can really take some action towards progress.
Yeah. So it's a documentary that highlights kind of the PTSD stuff and the journey. I know one thing that stood out to me when I saw the documentary was the transition into regular life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, or even the expectations of like, all right, here you go, welcome back. Go back to whatever job, or, you know, I mean, just even into back to your family. Everybody else doesn't understand what you just went through. So, I mean, that stood out to me a lot. And just the being able to talk about it, you know, I mean, have you seen in the veteran world, like resistance or versus openness? Like, how is that conversation around mental health with veterans received?
I think it's received very well.
Okay.
I don't think it's transmitted very well.
Okay.
So the problem is, and there's so many layers, but if you think about joining the military, they send you, the first thing they do is send you to boot camp so that you can learn how to be what they need you to be. And there's a lot that goes into that. But, you know, for the Marine Corps, it's 13 weeks. So you spend 13 weeks every day, all day, sun up to well past sundown, learning how to meet or exceed those expectations. And then at the end of your time, whether it's 4 years or 30 years, no one teaches you how to come back into normal life. Yeah. So it's quite the transition. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we're there to help them do that. And there's plenty of folks out there that do that, but you don't know where to look sometimes. And you would think that in our transition services through the military that all of that would be outlined, right? It's not. Some of it is, and the majority is not. So that transition is huge. And if you don't meet the veterans where they are at that point of transition, sometimes they just come out and struggle. They spiral. They are lost. A lot of them go home to where they came from, but I'm an example of one that doesn't. You know, I didn't do that at all. So coming here and having to find a veteran community, which I really didn't want to do, you know, not for any reason specifically. I had just done that for 30 years of my life. I wanted to challenge myself and do something outside of that community, but quickly learned that, you know, I felt very comfortable in that community. So I missed that. But it is a real challenge to do that. And I heard somebody say, you know, when you go to combat and come home, every veteran is changed. It's the same when they go to boot camp. Like, nobody knows what to expect of you when you come home. They don't know how you're going to be, but they expect you to be better. But then I heard somebody else say, well, you know, every veteran that serves pays with their life. They either pay in combat or they pay for the rest of their life. And I was like, wow,
that's really,
that's huge. I never thought of it that way. Because I don't personally struggle a lot with what I saw or what I had to do in my service, but I know a lot of people that do. And sometimes it just is very handicapping for them.
So we're sitting here in May. It's Military Appreciation Month. We have Memorial Day this month. What would your advice be to civilians that as we interact with veterans, those that have lost loved ones, do you see any things of like, don't say this, or that's what I'm always worried about, is like putting my foot in my mouth. Or like, how do we support? What are things that people can do?
I appreciate the question because you don't know, right? And I'm never personally offended by any of the celebrations for military folks. I think it's great. I know a lot of people that are. So you'll see all the keyboard warriors on, you know, social media. They're like, hey, it's Memorial Day. This is a day to remember the lost, the fallen, etc. And it is. But, you know, I'm not, if you're having a barbecue, you know, just at some point, maybe think about the veterans that, you know, that were lost. Or if you pray before a meal, include them in your prayer. And their families, the ones that, you know, didn't get to see them come home. So, I don't know. People, I'm not that way. I think it's great that there's still a day to celebrate the sacrifices, because we all go into the military knowing that we could pay that price. So, I don't know. It's kind of weird. At the same time, it's weird when people say thank you for your service, because me personally, I loved what I did for the Marine Corps for 30 years. I loved it. And it's just who I am. So to be thanked for it, it's like, okay, you know, I appreciate you saying it, but I don't really know what to say. You know, and now a lot of people will say you're worth it, which is cool to do, but you just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, I think that if you're patriotic, I just feel like it's in you to do it. My grandfather was in World War II. My dad and his brothers were all Vietnam guys. I grew up around these guys.
Wow.
So it gives me chills just to talk about it. But these are the men that were in my life as mentors growing up. So it's like what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to do this from the time that I was a little kid, and then I got to do it for 30 years.
That's so
So
cool.
for somebody to thank me for that, I'm just like,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, so we'll let you work on receiving the thanks because the rest of us are going to continue to say thank you. But we know this goes on past May, so what I'm hearing so far is like if someone's listening to this and they're like, hey, I'm not a veteran. This is kind of a world I don't know a ton about, but I want to help. I've heard obviously supporting Veterans Treatment Court financially, even attending maybe, or if someone's linked through a nonprofit or a social service provider, getting involved in the social services sector in general, just by all that kind of support. But what else? Like what else the rest of the year can we be doing to support your efforts, the military community team, the Veterans Treatment Court, anything and everything?
Probably the most important thing that I could say to the viewers is contact me. There's so much stuff going on throughout the year. May is a big month. November's a big month because we'll have Veterans Day. It's the Marine Corps' 250th birthday. Oh, wow. There's so many things happening in May and November specifically. But all they have to do is just go to our website. There's a lot of information about veteran-specific stuff on the county website.
Okay.
But if they just Google Ellis County Veterans Treatment Court, it'll come straight to my page. They have my contact info. All of our eligibility criteria is there.
That's perfect.
It talks about everything on there, and we're constantly adding stuff to it.
That's great. Okay, good. So we'll make sure and put all that information at the bottom. Any other final things for Ellis County that you want to know? It sounds to me that you're in the perfect spot as far as your work with the military. I'm glad you didn't go to HR.
Right, me too. I love HR. The people that work over there are great, but
but you're in such a good spot. It sounds like you're a perfect fit for this. And
I think so. I really enjoy the work. I enjoy the outcome. Doing the graduations that we've had over the last few weeks has made it all worth it. Because so like any job, you get into a point where it's like, okay, I need to see the fruition.
Some wins.
Yeah. So we got those wins, and it's just been phenomenal. I love it. Neat. I love doing it. We just had we had to submit for grants. We're grant funded through the Texas Veterans Commission. So we reapplied for a new grant. We tripled it from what we had. So now we're going to be able to serve more. And we're looking at turning our court into a regional court for multiple counties.
Cool.
So there's so many things moving behind the scenes that people just don't know. So we're trying to grow. We're trying to do more. We're trying to serve as many veterans as we can because they're out there.
That's awesome.
And nobody should be like held back from what they can do just because they're in a different zip code.
Yes. And I love that they're coming into Ellis County.
Absolutely.
We're just rocking it here. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. We'll post Brent's information, reach out to him, get involved. Let's support the veterans throughout the year, not just May and November. And everyone have a great month. Thanks for joining us.